everybody, and welcome to another edition, episode number 22 of the Lab Epstein Hitting Podcast. Today we are doing a Vladimir Guerrero Jr. swing breakdown. It's our mechanical breakdown series. And Jake, I think this is number 3, if I'm not mistaken. We've already done Christian Yelich, Bryce Harper. This is number 4. We've done Spencer Torkelson. And now today we are doing Blue Jays first baseman. I know him pretty well, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. It's kind of cool from my perspective. I kind of saw him grow up right in front of my eyes. And I always tell people that, like with Bo Bichette, Kevin Biggio, and Patrick Murphy, who pitched last night, actually made his Blue Jays debut. Saw him grow up right in front of my eyes as well. And Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is no different.
No, I think the saddest part of your intro there was the fact that he's a first baseman now. Like, that makes me really sad. We were talking about it a little bit off air. He's a very athletic guy, but we don't want to follow that Pablo Sandoval trail. He's too athletic, I think, to be a first baseman. And he could be so much more valuable playing third base. So I hope that he's young and he gets good meal money, so I hope that he kind of figures out the process as he gets a little bit older.
That voice you hear on the other side is renowned hitting instructor, professional evaluator, my former coach, friend, and co-host, Jake Epstein. We're also talking about football betting lines as well prior to the show. So we have a wide array of topics prior to each show that we talk about. Off air. By the way, and I can relate to you on this, where you see people grow up, players right in front of your eyes, and get to their peak of their careers. And you've seen that so many times with all of the students that you currently work with and have done work with in the past, whether they get to the major leagues or not, to see them have success wherever that peak may be in their careers.
Yeah, it's really cool to kind of follow those guys. And there was a big thing, Mizzou had a couple pitchers that recently made it to the big leagues and had amazing starts, and to see all the old Mizzou alumni guys kind of stick together, Kinsler and Scherzer, and they all did like a little promo for their buddy, good luck with it. And I think that's kind of a cool little community when you see that, and not just that school, but different schools across the country, because you shared a field with these guys. You shared locker room stories, you shared bus rides, you shared experiences on the field, both good and bad, and injuries, and going through 5:30 in the morning workouts on a Friday morning, before you go to classes. And I think that's a great part of athletics, regardless of what sport you play, baseball, softball, football, basketball. It's, it creates a wonderful environment that, it has lifelong friends, and you create those relationships at a very young age. And that's, as we talk about, professional guys today, you hope that nucleus that the Blue Jays have, with Guerrero and Biggio and Bichette, that those guys just kind of stick together for as long as possible because they came up through the minor leagues together. By
the way, is it Biggio or Biggio?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I'm trying to think if I've been saying it wrong for the past 3 years. I met his father years ago. We walked out of Steinbrenner Field in September of 2017 together. And I remember I must have been saying his name wrong, the last name Biggio, the whole year, and now I probably say it wrong too now, and now I feel kind of bad that I'm saying his last name wrong. I don't know if it's Biggio if that's the New Jersey, Philadelphia, Northeast thing, or if it's Biggio if you're saying it correctly, like tournament and tournament. It's tournament.
Here we go again. I have no idea. That's just the way I say it. I'm likely wrong because I am not a professional like yourself.
I'm not either. I don't know what you're professional. What are you talking about?
Professional what?
Professional what?
Professional what?
Today I'm using my phone a lot for our episode because I have videos of Vladimir Guerrero Jr. that will be uploaded, by the way, on the Epstein Hitting Facebook page later on, possibly YouTube as well, of our breakdown of his swing. But I have a couple of things I want to run by you here. This is about Ty Cobb, just kind of a random thing. 111 years ago, this was Friday. So this was... I found this picture on Friday, September 18th, as we record this. 111 years ago today, so Friday, Ty Cobb won the quadruple crown I never even knew there was such a thing. Leading the league in batting average, home runs, RBIs, and stolen bases. He's the only quadruple crown winner in Major League Baseball history. We'll never see another one of that, right?
I don't think so. What were do you have his numbers for the quadruple crown?
I do not, because I 111 years ago, that's too much math for me. Sorry about that.
Like, I wonder how many home runs he hit.
It couldn't have been much, because I was thinking back when we did our hitting history book.
It's early 1900s, right?
There wasn't many home runs hit.
Years, right, as like 1909.
Yeah, there wasn't many home runs hit back then. The power surge came in around the Babe Ruth time, if I'm not mistaken.
Did they count how many guys he spiked as well? Because I'm sure he led the league in that.
Yeah, he was dirty, wasn't he?
I think so.
Yeah, he was
He was what he was, man. The guy wanted to win, played hard.
You can argue he was kind of a jerk-off.
Yeah, I think you could argue that too, but,
Also, Saturday, Saturday, September, it kind of rhymed. Kind of confused. September 19th was the birthday of Joe Morgan, Hall of Famer, 77th birthday. 2,517 career hits, 268 home runs, 1,133 RBIs, 689 stolen bases, 10-time All-Star, 5-time Gold Glove winner, 2-time NL MVP, 2-time World Series champion, one of the greatest second basemen in baseball history, and one of the most dissected color commentators ever in the game of baseball. I used to love him on Sunday Night Baseball. I thought his knowledge was impeccable, and people just didn't like it. I don't get it.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I don't remember. I mean, I do know his reputation of when I did it, and I did this, and I did that, and I think that's what people maybe rubbed off kind of the wrong way. But the guy had a lot of information. My dad, Big Mike, played on a team with him, and I'm trying to think what it was, a Dodgers rookie team, like when he was in college. And he always used to tell me what an amazing player he was.
Yeah.
Like
we didn't mention him in the hitting history book, which I kind of regret. We should have mentioned more of him. He was a really good player. Yeah. But they played during the dead ball era, too.
Yeah, he was in the 70s AstroTurf, right, with the with the Reds.
Yeah.
Boy, did they have good teams, though.
They did. I want to one more point here before we get into Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I want to discuss with you here. Jose Altuve really struggling. As of this weekend, he was hitting 222 this year. I know it's a short season. We talked about this off air as well, how you got to take this season with a grain of salt. But I wonder, and people are saying now, because Jose Altuve allegedly cheated to some extent with other Astros players in years past, and people are starting to wonder, is his whole career kind of a fraud? Is he really the hitter that we think he is? What do you make right now of Jose Altuve's struggles?
Well, I don't think it was allegedly. I think the trash can banging was pretty cut and dry.
All right.
However, I don't think that was his whole career.
Okay.
I really don't. I don't. Now, what I do think is sports and baseball, and we'll see it today in the U.S. Open golf tournament. Like, when there's room to get into your head, it will get in there. And the fact that he has that cloud over his head, I really don't care how strong-willed of an athlete you have and how many sports psychologists you have. Doubt enters in, and we can get rid of it. The good guys can get rid of it, not think about it. But that's a huge. The fact that he's struggling and there's no fans in the stands, that's a little bit more alarming.
Yeah.
I would say, because this should have been a really rough year on the Astros. Like, everywhere they went, they're gonna. I saw Trevor Bauer. Did you see his new shoes today?
I did. Yeah, the trash can shoes.
They had trash cans on it.
He's got a great YouTube show, by the way, which I really enjoy. There's a guy who's misunderstood, by the way. Him and Derek Dietrich, they are two of the most misunderstood players across the league. Really cool guys if you watch Trevor Bauer's show. But yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. I agree with you. I want to say this, though, about Jose Altuve. I agree for the most part. There's one thing that kind of alarms me. I'm not saying that this whole trash can thing, the lawyer in me is going to say allegedly. But the whole trash can thing, I'm with you on that. Since he came up, that wasn't something that was going on. It's something in recent years that started to evolve. But you're seeing him struggle the most out of all the guys from Correa to Springer, and you start to really wonder why. And I think that doubt does creep into your head, saying, is he the player or is he the hitter? Does he have the bat-to-ball skills that we believe that he had prior to this cheating? I hate that word scandal, but I'll use scandal.
Yeah. I think so.
Okay.
I mean, I have watched him hit. I will tell you, I've noticed even last year, possibly the year before, his swing is it is different. So he's had more, and I haven't looked at it this year, but I remember looking at videos last year and thinking, his timing is going to be okay, but his barrel does have some holes in it. Like, he's going to get exposed a lot more, but he didn't necessarily get exposed that much last year. But I just noticed a bigger barrel drop than I ever remember, because he's always been a really good high ball hitter. And you can't really have a dump at all to be a high ball hitter. And all of a sudden I started to see that. So I'm wondering this year, maybe we need to dissect his swing, do a comparison of, maybe a 2020 swing versus the year he won the batting title.
Well, you can do that in 5 episodes. Sure thing.
Yeah, right. Like, so that might be kind of a fun thing to do to see that. I won't tell you, but I did a similar comparison with a pro player, because that kind of stuff happens. It happens. Like, why is this guy struggling when last year or the year before he was so great? Is it environmental? Did he go through a divorce? Does he not like the 60-game season with no fans? Or is there something wrong with his swing that's causing that problem? And usually there's something. That's a sign of a good hitting coach. Hey, we're struggling. Why are we struggling? Right? Is it timing and rhythm? That's usually the first place I would check with a major leaguer, timing and rhythm. Or is it something? Are your hands launching? Look at your front foot. When your front toe hits the ground, look at where your hands are. Well, they're 3 inches lower than they were early in the year. Or when your heel plants, look at where your hands are. Or look at where your front shoulder is, or where your strike. I mean, there's so many things that could go off a little bit, and sometimes good athletes can correct that, and sometimes all of a sudden now we're in a 20-25 at-bat slump.
Yeah.
So, the proper hitting coach is going to, have a list of what he's going to look for to see for differences. And then if he doesn't see any differences, then it could be, pitchers are making adjustments to him, and they're starting to expose him. And now all of a sudden we need to make a mechanical adjustment. Those take time.
I wonder, players see their numbers plastered up on these big video boards. I mean, those video boards, no disrespect to your dad, they weren't as high definition, we'll say, and in your face when he was playing. But nowadays, you look at these video boards, and they have every single statistic, traditionally and analytically, and it's staring at you every single time you go to the plate. And it's updating now, too, every time you go to the plate as well. And I'm wondering if the combination of that and the 60-game season and trying to get your numbers to where you want them to be and feeling that pressure closing in on you of 60 games is affecting him, because he's been so used to having so much success and having high numbers. Take away looking at them constantly, but having those high numbers and leading the league, or at least in the top 5 in the league in so many offensive categories, that he's just struggling mentally to come to grips with what's going on right now at the plate.
Yeah, it absolutely could be that way. I mean, it's tough. And again, he doesn't have people yelling at him.
Yeah.
Pointing out what that. Now, maybe the opposing dugout is. Bauer probably is. Yeah. But you're not seeing that. I remember, I played short season in Montana, and I got a hit my first game, and I was playing every third day, every other day, probably every third day at that point. I joined the team late and out of college, and I think I went 1 for 3 the first day. Well, anyway, fast forward a few weeks or a month, and I'm looking up at that board that says .050.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? 2 for 40. And I'm hearing it from old ladies that don't have any teeth. They're yelling at me. I'm in the on-deck circle, this, that, and the other. And I'm like, 40 at bat. I only got half a season left, right?
Yeah.
Like, I better get on it. And fortunately, I turned it around and ended up hitting, I think, over 500 the second half of the year. Yeah. So I finished at 330-something, 335, 336. But I'll tell you what, looking at that scoreboard, I mean, to this day, I can remember looking at that scoreboard every day and watching it go down and go down and go down.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough.
Rough.
Yeah. Well, good talk there. By the way, Astros had some bad juju this week with Justin Verlander on the injured list. He's having Tommy John surgery, and he's in his 30s. So we wish him a speedy recovery. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast. New episodes Mondays at 9 a.m. We're on social media at Epstein Hitting, at Jim Tara if you have any questions, or you can email us, jimbopodcast21@gmail.com. We do have a question we'll get to at the end of the episode today. Episode number 22, Mechanical Breakdown Series number 4, Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s Swing Breakdown. If you don't know who Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is, I'm sure most of you do. He's the son of Vlad Sr. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. was born in Canada, in Montreal, in fact, but he grew up in the Dominican Republic, where his uncle Wilton Guerrero, you probably remember that name, Jake, who, like his brother Vladimir, played for the Expos in Montreal. Wilton actually helped raise and train Vladdy Jr. more so than his father did in the finer points of baseball. Vladdy was signed in 2015 for a couple of $1 million coming out of the Dominican Republic. I don't remember this. Maybe you do. But was there a lot of fanfare around this signing? I mean, there was a lot of fanfare around the Lourdes Gurriel Jr. signing, around the Yoenis Cespedes signing, although Cespedes was further along. I don't know. There just wasn't much made of it that he was signed for that amount of money for a guy who was so advanced, I think, physically and mentally in the game of baseball at that point in 2015.
I don't remember that big of a number.
Okay.
I don't remember $2 million. That's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, that's big. That's a dude.
Mm-hmm.
So for somebody that signed for that amount of money, and no, I don't remember the huge fanfare of that until he got into the minor leagues and started to get some publicity. That I mean, he obviously wasn't under the radar, but yeah, that's a dude. You start talking those kind of numbers coming out of the Dominican at age 15, 16 years old.
Yeah,
that's a guy that better be in the big leagues, because that's probably equivalent to $10 or $12 million, for an amateur player.
Right. Well, for comparison, so Vladimir Guerrero Jr. got $3.9 million to sign. Spencer Torkelson, the number 1 overall pick this year, got $8.4 million with a signing contingency bonus of $2.5. Mm-hmm. So I guess they're in the same, not all that close, not in the same ballpark. But Vladimir was paid as if he was at least a top 3 round guy, correct?
Yeah, at age 16.
Right. Okay, yeah.
So, I mean, this is a guy that didn't have to go play in the Pac-12 either. He didn't have to play in clay. He's 16 years old. And again, the money, that $2 million, or what did he sign for? 3.4? Is that what you said?
3.9. So I was wrong. I thought I was off, yeah.
Oh my gosh. So 3.9 really in the Dominican. I mean, you could say those are US dollars, but he wasn't living in the US at that time, right? From 16 to 18, he's at a Dominican academy, right? Somebody's holding all that money. So that to me, that's a monster. That's a monster contract, or a monster bonus for a 16-year-old.
Yeah.
Because, hey, look at Torkelson. Torkelson didn't get drafted out of high school. Right.
Which is kind of well,
and not that. There's a lot of guys that don't get drafted out of high school because they want huge contracts, and they're going to go to Stanford, right?
Yeah.
They're going to go to LSU, or they're going to go to A&M, or wherever they're going to go, right? And they're going to play, and they're going to increase their value.
Yeah.
But he wasn't a highly touted high school player whatsoever.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's big time.
And I also want to make a point too that amount of money, it's a ton. Here's why: because teams have, as you know, a limit, international bonus pool.
That's right.
Limit. They spend a lot. That means that you can only take resources from here and put it here, and you can only allocate so much. They paid him a lot of money.
That was their guy.
It's paying off. That was their guy, and I'm sure they missed out on a couple of young prospects that they really wanted to sign, maybe for significantly less money, but just couldn't do it. But anyway.
Right. And that's where it evens out. The international signing pool money really evens out between the Yankees and the Reds or the Brewers.
Yeah.
Right. Like, that's where it's even. You can't just go buy whoever you want. There are limits. There is a quote unquote salary cap to go get those guys, even though they're considered free agents. It's not a draft.
Yeah.
you can't just have an open checkbook going in.
So anyway, Vlad blew through the minor league system and made his major league debut last year in 2019. We're going to obviously dive into his swing, but just really quickly, what do you like about his swing?
For a big guy, it's so short. His hand path has no wasted motion, and for players that maybe aren't strong, they wouldn't be able to get away with that. You can be really short to the ball, and it will cut back on some of your barrel speed. And I think that's one of the problems with hitting in general is everybody's concerned about how hard you can hit a ball, how far can you hit a ball. Well, you can increase your swing arc to create length and leverage and whip and swing the bat harder, but it doesn't play when someone's trying to get you out, right? It doesn't play when somebody's throwing 90 to 100 miles an hour. So, you run into these issues with, what are we teaching young players to create barrel speed? Well, Vlad Guerrero, I guarantee you, was never worried about barrel speed as he was coming through, right? He was worried about finding the barrel and hitting balls up the middle. Wilton, whatever he was, teaching him at a young age, taught him about the shortest, and we'll see this on video, the shortest hand path there is in Major League Baseball. So he's about as short to the ball as you can get and long through the ball. And we hear that old saying, all the time, short to it, long through it, but people don't know what that is. They don't. I mean, you have to look on video to see it. You can't go full speed and be like, oh, he's short to it and long through it with his extension. So we're going to really go through and show what that means and why it's so important to players. Yeah. Because that's definitely why he is great now at a very young age and will continue to be that way. Aside from him putting on another 50 pounds and getting hurt.
I'm glad you brought that up, the previous point about short to it, long through it. We talked about this on previous episodes about how swings of big leaguers from the time they're in high school through college and the minor leagues up to the major league level doesn't really change all that much. That's very true with Vladimir Guerrero Jr., in my opinion, and I think if you get a chance, try to search out his pregame work in the cage, Instagram, Twitter, it's all out there. I don't know. It's a thing. It's absolutely a thing of beauty. You mentioned it. It's so simple, so short. I've seen it firsthand myself many, many times. It really strips everything down, and it's kind of a get back to basics type plan when he's in the cage with that execution.
Yeah, it is, and it's like I wish I could take a step back and hang out with them when he was 10, 11, 12 years old.
Oh, yeah.
And see what that process was. Now, I guarantee you he was always big. So like I said, when you're a little bit stronger, you don't have to reach back, and you don't create that length and those bad habits. And he's a very, stocky, tight core kind of guy, and he uses that beautifully to propel his bat. And he doesn't really have any wasted motion whatsoever.
All right, well, we're going to take a break really quick here, and then we'll get into the swing breakdown coming up next. But first, let's talk about your certification courses that are coming up here right around the corner in October, the Epstein hitting certification courses.
Yeah, so we're super excited for this one because it's the first one at the lab down in Texas. And so I talked to a bunch of people last week that are coming into town for it. Which is great. It'll be a great mix of, former certified guys that are out there that just, want to see what's new. Like I always have stuff that's new. We're always updating. We're always finding better ways to create hitters, whether it's mechanical breakdowns, how we use video, how we use the hit tracks, how we use 3D technology, how we use the pitch recognition, So we're going to, we share our secrets really with certification. This is our highest level of training, and we'll have probably a couple college coaches. We'll have a ton of dads that are just parents that just want good information for their kids. They don't want to mess up their kids, and it's cheaper for them to attend certification and learn it on their own than it is for them to hire a hitting instructor they're not real sure about, for the next 5 years of their kid's life. So, yep, doing that down in College Station at the lab, using everything we have to offer there in about a month.
Yeah, so for more information, log on to EpsteinHitting.com and sign up. I think it'll be certainly worth your time. And if you have a kid, then you don't have to worry about sending him to one of these hitting gurus. So sign up today, EpsteinHitting.com. All right, very good. Let's get into our mechanical breakdown of Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Mechanical Breakdown Series number 4, the Lab Epstein Hitting episode number 22. I'll let you take it here, Jake, and I'll just kind of sprinkle in some of my commentary as well. And by the way, really quickly, all of this will be available on the Epstein Facebook hitting page and the YouTube page a little bit later on today as well, so you can follow along if you have that capability.
All right, well, so let's get started. So the first swing we're going to look at is a breaking ball. It's a curved ball that Vlad is staying on and hitting to the opposite field. So when I do training at the lab, we have velocity machines. We set up those. We set up breaking balls, and players work through those. They usually get about 100 swings in each of those stations, during their sessions each night. And what I find a lot with young players is on curveballs, they swing and miss to the inside. They don't know how to stay on that pitch is what you would think about is how do you stay on that outside pitch? And so their timing is good, but their bat misses the ball by 3 inches because they're swinging to the pull side versus, extending through the opposite field, which we need to do on pitches working away from us. So, as we go here with Vlad and we go through, we're looking at the front view here, we can see how he lets that ball you can see where that pitch is, right, working away from him. And you can see how his barrel is extending out towards kind of the pitcher's mound, right? He's going to extend through that to hit that ball, out of the park. So it's really important. It would have been really easy for him to keep rotating and not use his extension to get to that pitch. And if we look at it from the side now, okay, so now we'll get a side view and you'll see this pitch working away. You can see how quiet his hands are. So many people want, load your hands back, walk away from your hands. I mean, I've been hearing that since I was, I used to hear my dad talking about that all the time. He wasn't one that taught it, but that's what everybody was in love with. Walk away from your hands. Well, if you look at Vlad Guerrero here, as he's taking his stride, okay, his hands are, whatever that green line is, right? Is that 8 inches, away from, his head as it goes through, right? So when we get to toe touch, that's the green line. You can see it might even be a wrong line there, but it might be like the exact same. Like there was no push. His hands are staying. He's got them preloaded before. Okay, so as he takes his stride, okay, and he cocks his hands, you can see as he's gliding forward, now his hands are pretty stationary. So this is where I see a lot of problems with kids. They're already starting to fold their back elbow underneath here. Mm-hmm. They're trying to reach back and straighten their front arm, and that's a real problem. Okay, so again, once he gets to toe touch here, you can see just looks like everybody else we look at. He's balanced here. His head is a little bit behind center. Okay, the knob is facing back here. His back armpit is still open. His front shoulder is really down. Okay. And then as he goes through and we start to rotate, notice how that bat stays right next to his head, right next to his shoulder, even on a pitch that's away. Okay. And then the best part about this is we talk about staying on pitches. Here's this breaking ball working down and away from him, right? Probably on a 9 or 10 degree downslope. Well, watch how see how his barrel gets to it probably about here. Okay. But watch his extension. So he hits it there. Yeah, he definitely wasn't swinging up from there to there. He was probably swinging very level to the ground.
His front knee. He makes contact around his front knee, I'm looking at.
Yeah, that's what it looks like, yeah. But if you watch his barrel, even though the ball's shooting up like this, whoops, wrong line there. So here's the trajectory of the pitch, right? Shooting up that way. Look at where his barrel goes. See how his barrel stays through the pitch line. Okay, so what happens if he was a little early? He may have been able to still get a piece of it out here. Yeah. So you can see how long. That's what long through it means. It doesn't mean you're going long through the trajectory of the pitch. It means you're going, trajectory of the batted ball. You're going through the trajectory of that pitch going forward. And that is what he does so well.
He has a little bit of a Ted Williams type hitch with his
Pretty
hands.
Awesome.
That I noticed as well. I'm looking at it on my phone here. Yeah, he's got the Ted Williams type hitch a little bit going there in his load.
He does.
A little bit. And again, this first video for those listening along, it's the Blue Jays are wearing their powder blue old school tops. That's the video we're looking at here. But yeah, that's a low pitch, and that's a good swing.
It is a low pitch. It's he's staying through it. It's not easy. So let me pull up another swing here. So there's some good stuff we can learn from a lot of his swings. So just bear with me for 1 second.
I think the next one you're talking about is the view from above that the Rays always have on their TV broadcasts of hitters, which I think is a great view, by the way. Yeah,
it's so fun. I wish everybody had this view because it really gives you an idea of what is happening with the bat, and more importantly, check this out. This is what people don't realize. So when we set up at the lab, none of our pitches come from the middle of the rubber. This is obviously a left-handed pitcher, right? Because this ball is crossing the plate like this. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's the way it's coming in. So what people don't understand when they're setting up machines is, they just set it up, down the middle of the mound. We try to get it to, if it's depending on the age group, if it's a grown man, right? It's an 18-year-old high school class. They're going to deliver that ball from usually like 3 to 3.5 feet off of the rubber to their arm side. And that's what we're trying to do. So it's really funny when players come in, they're always like, hey, the machine's not straight. And so I have to tell them, look, it's not straight in the game. Where does the guy deliver the ball? And they're like, oh, that's genius. Because what happens is when you hit a ball, if you're trying to get square to this pitch, right, if you're trying to get perpendicular to this pitch, he would have to hit it back here, right? Somewhere back in here. Well, that's not where he's hitting it. So he's hitting it on an angle like this. Well, what's that going to cause? When you have an angle in here like this, that's going to cause a little bit of hook, right? Yeah. So that's why it's so important to practice and see where balls go with pitches that are in different spots, okay, because of how they're coming in on the player and where we're making contact. If I'm not mistaken, this was like 116 point something miles an hour.
Oh, good Lord.
Or something like that, 115. It was only a 16-degree launch angle, which most home runs, like let's take that back a step. Most home runs are like 20 to 30 degrees and really like 25 to 32, okay? That was back in the day, 3 years ago. So I don't know what's going on with the balls this year, but typically 16-degree line drives don't go over the fence, okay? Those are like bullets at an outfielder if they're hit that hard, or there may be doubles that hit, the bottom of the fence. So number one, now maybe he had great backspin on this, so that might let it stay in the air a little bit longer. But typically a 16-degree line drive, if you go back to like StatCast a few years ago, I would love to, I haven't, I didn't dive into that yet, but I wonder how many 16-degree home runs there were, a couple years ago versus today. So this is just a really cool view. And then if we look at this, let's go ahead and break this down. You can see he's slightly closed. Okay, slightly closed stance. Okay. And then when he strides, okay, you can see, he kind of stays on that same heel line, if you will, or toe line. He's probably, if I try to find his toe, that's his toe line. So it's still closed. Okay. But this pitch is in, and he was still able to clear his hip. So, we've talked about this before. I'm a proponent of staying, an inch or two closed with the stride versus an inch or two open. That's just me based on youth players versus pro players, because youth players will open their front shoulder as soon as their front foot goes left. Now, you look at Chris Davis from the A's, he does a really great job of stepping in the bucket, if you will, stepping left, but keeping his front shoulder down. So for me, when I'm teaching, getting that front shoulder down usually is beneficial, or it's usually easier to accomplish if the stride doesn't step out. Okay. And then if you look here, look how close that bat goes to his shoulder here as he drops it kind of into the slot there.
Yeah.
Okay. And then he, rotates, and look at the meat of his barrel, right, is covering, probably that part of the strike zone. You can see how quickly. So check this out. This is cool. Look how quickly his barrel extends left, because this pitch was bearing in on him, versus when he hit that outside pitch on the previous view, right, where his power V was more towards the pitcher and the second baseman. Now his power V is probably out here towards the shortstop or maybe that 5-6 hole.
And
So
how about
just
his bat lag too? I mean, I'm looking at his hands and where they are, and how the barrel
yeah.
still hasn't released. His hands, well, what I'm looking at on my phone currently, are where they need to be. And again, we've talked about it before with that bat lag. You want to release the barrel later on inside pitch, not earlier. And it seems like he's getting that whip because of that.
And I'm going to restate that because it probably won't come through on my audio for the upload. So what Jimmy was talking about was bat lag, and whip. And the way we create whip is getting the knob to pull out in front while the barrel stays behind our body. Mm-hmm. Okay. So you can see him pulling. And the only way to do that is to use your hands. If you just turn your shoulders here, it doesn't work. Okay. But he's actually pulling the knob forward. And as you pull the knob forward and, dare I say, towards the opposite field, even though this pitch was inside, you can see where the catcher is. Okay. What does that do? It drops the bat behind us. Then as we rotate later, we can release that barrel out in front. So this is the same exact move. If you watch a golfer, it's the same exact move when they drop their club through. Right here, that move there where you start to pull the hand forward and drop the barrel, kind of behind us, it creates tension in your top hand wrist. And then as we turn here, there's even more tension in the top hand wrist because look at the angle of the bat. The bat's like this. Right? So what do you think his top hand wrist is like? Super tight. And then boom, now he's going to start to release that and whip the barrel around him. Okay. So that's a very, that's bat lag, what Jim was saying. That's exactly, how you want to create it. Okay. And that's why we try to use our bottom hand early in the swing. If you use your top hand too early in the swing, a lot of times you'll collapse your right elbow and your right arm. So you want that lead arm. You can see his lead elbow and his lead tricep kind of pulling forward there. From there to there, okay, that is what creates your initial, lag position so that now you can release and use that top hand to finish your power part of the swing. But again, going through here, watch the load with his hands. It's not a huge load, right? Like, look how bent his lead arm still is. His hands are not that far back. They are behind his armpit. They are behind his shoulder. But he's not pushing them back even more, which is really a perfect combination because he can still hit a ball 115 miles an hour, right, without the risk of, being exposed by trying to reach back a little bit too much.
This is a great view here, and I'll let you repeat this if my audio is not coming in, but this overhead view.
Hey, Jim, we got to hold on. I don't think the recording clicked in. I got to redo that. All right, so we got to talk about lag again.
Okay.
Because it wasn't recording on the screen. So my apologies there. So we were talking about, this bat using the left arm to pull through. Okay. So that lag position where the hand starts to pull forward and then dropping this barrel to the inside, that allows us to release the barrel out in front. So making sure that we don't use our top hand too early. And I shouldn't say you can keep the top hand in position. Okay. So his right hand, but using, the lead arm early. This is why my guys do so many bottom hand drills. Okay. Because the first move when we land and rotate is all front side, front leg, front knee, front hip, front oblique, front shoulder, and then front arm. We want that to kick in first. Okay. Then once we get to there, now the power of the backside and the dominant side for most guys, especially him, he's a right-handed thrower, can come through. So setting up that lag early creates so much energy. It's the same as you're going to see a golfer get to that same position when they start to drop the knob through. Because when you drop the knob through and out in front, and for him towards right center, what does that do? That lags the bat behind the back shoulder. Okay, it doesn't drop the bat. Don't think that it drops the bat. It just keeps it up and behind him so that when he does rotate and get to here and then release his right hand, he's going to pick up a little bit extra bat speed.
So this view overhead, it's a good look for a lot of reasons. The one thing I want to ask about his load and his stride, how much inward turn? He has a toe tap in this swing anyway.
Mm-hmm.
How much inward turn does he have to start to get his hips going, or if any at all? Because he obviously has the back to forward movement, gets to that position where he needs to be, the 50-50 position where he needs to actually be, and good load to get into his torque. But how much inward turn do you see there?
Yeah, so Jimmy was talking about inward turn here. How much inward turn do we see with his lower body? He starts pretty closed, right? I mean, you can see, his shoulder line is already closed. His hip line is probably like that. So he's closed to start. His feet are kind of closed. So he's not going to have a huge move. His knee's already kind of in there. But as you watch him, and he does his little toe tap there, right? Kind of just have a small toe tap. And then he goes here. It's not a huge move. He definitely brings his hips in a little bit more when he's striding, but it's not as big as a lot of guys. Okay. Everything he does is pretty minimal. He does everything correctly, but the inward turn's important. He has, maybe half of what most guys have. The front shoulder coming down, or loading the hands, he might have 20% because he just starts that way. We talked about Joe Morgan, okay? Guys like that they used to start really closed with their upper half, okay? And then some guys we talked about, in one of the previous episodes when my dad was talking, when he was working with Eric Karros for the Dodgers, he had to get him to counter-rotate when he would stride. So when Karros would do this with his front foot, his chest was like, square. Okay, so his, instead of Vlad going like this, Karros would have been like this. So my dad had to get him into this position.
More inward turn, More inward turn, you're saying.
He had to have a big inward turn because he started so square and so open. Where if you looked at a guy like, Reggie Smith or even Ken Griffey Jr., right? Ken Griffey Jr. started kind of like Vlad with his shoulders already turned and his body already coiled. So some of that, or I should say a lot of that is a personal preference.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's not really affecting his swing in any way.
It is not affecting his swing.
Or his power, I should say. His power, really.
No, because it's already there. Now, maybe he could have more power, if he was more trying to think of the best way to put it. I guess if he was more elastic, if he started and he had a bigger stretch and a bigger move, he would have more power, but it would add to risk.
Yeah.
And if it adds to risk, why does he need to hit a ball any harder? He hits the ball plenty hard, right? So that's kind of the whole risk reward, where somebody we talked about Altuve earlier, who's a lot younger, Altuve had to have he's got to have a bigger move because he's not as big of a guy. So,
bigger move as in inward turn or bigger stride? Because I know striding is a timing mechanism, but I don't want to get people confused.
Yeah, so it's all part of the same thing. So it would be the inward turn would happen during a stride. You can do it with a low leg kick or a high leg kick. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So we're going to go with this. So here's another Vlad Jr. swing on a breaking ball away. Okay, so a breaking ball, it was supposed to be away. It probably ended up a little bit away. But he was able to still get that thing out in front. So it's probably somewhat of a hanger. But how was he able to hit it out in front? Because he's super long through it. And what does super long through it mean? Look at his right arm here. Look at his barrel here. Look at his left arm here. And then look at his barrel. He hasn't flipped that thing over. Okay, so let's draw our lines again and have an idea of what is, what his through it looks like. So here's the ball. Here, and then it's probably moving like that towards the catcher, 8 to 10 degrees. So where does his barrel get on plane? Gets on plane here, not until about his front knee. Now you know why I like him, okay? Because this swing plays whether you're 220 pounds or whether you're 170 pounds. You can find barrels, okay? So now he can find barrel there, he can find barrel there, he can find barrel there. And then watch his right arm extend, and you could call this a push. I mean, a push is like the worst. It's not the worst, but people hate the push. They say, pushing bad. Don't push the barrel through. Well, I don't know what that's called if it's not a push with the right hand, okay? I really don't know what that's called. All the people that are about just turn the barrel, right? Just kind of, get it down and then turn the heck out of it. They're missing this part of the swing. This, oh my gosh, my timing. And there's nothing wrong with what they're saying, but it minimizes your contact zone. There's no way a player that turns it is going to be able to keep this pitch fair. okay, they're going to hook that thing foul because this elbow is going to get caught back here. This elbow is going to still be at their rib cage. Their right arm will look like that. Their right hand will be there, and then the barrel will be on that angle. And when the barrel's on that angle, that ball goes foul. Okay, so this is just a super move. And then if we look at, where it starts, notice where his hands are. This is our short approach position we've talked to in all of our video breakdowns. Knob in front of the back elbow, right? Bat next to the shoulder, very compact. He's going to turn, and then here comes his hands. His hands are going to kick in, and he's going to stay through that ball. Now, by staying through it, he's able to hit the bottom, stay at the bottom half of it, because he's slightly under the pitch plane here, right?
Yeah.
But you know how quickly it is to do this and swing up over this ball? That's what happens if you don't extend your right arm. So if you keep that right arm bent, you'll just come over the top of this and top it.
Was that pitch, by the way?
Extending his right hand.
I'm sorry. Was that pitch, by the way, supposed to be outside, but it kind of leaked back over the middle of the plate? I'm kind of looking at his hips and where they're positioned.
Yeah, I don't think this pitch was that far away.
Okay, yeah,
I'm trying to watch the catcher here, where he is, but that pitch was pretty good pitch to hit, would be my guess. And right. You know what? This may not have been a breaking ball. It depends. I'm looking at the title of this swing, and it says curveball away, and that may have been the title of the first video that I did. So right. This may not have been a breaking ball away. It may have been just a fastball, middle in. It was definitely a good pitch to hit. But then again, short to it means we get to a good short approach position here. A bad position here, his left arm would be straight and across his chest, and his bat would be out here. Okay, so that's what you see with kids. And then, so this would be where the knob is, and then the elbow on a bad position would still be in here under his rib cage. So that's what I see with amateur players. About 80% of the time, players under 14, under 15. So this is a very short position. So to go from here, this is crucial. Like from here to your power V position, when you extend your arms, that's where consistency and barrels are found. Okay, you could do that with no legs. You could not swing with your legs and just do this with the upper body, and you would find barrels. Now, those barrels wouldn't go very far if you weren't rotating and using your legs and any kind of ground force. But
that's right.
But you would absolutely be able to be a successful hitter. Okay, I mean that's just kind of the way it is. That's where swing plane comes from here to here. Okay, so what players do from short approach to power V, and we spend a lot of time with our teaching with those moves and how to get a player to be consistent in those moves, because that's the biggest issue we see. Players don't get to those proper positions. They're not able to be short to it here, and they're not able to extend through here based on something they did during their stride or loading their hands or something like that. So we want that short approach to power V to be consistent.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go ahead and stop that video there. So for those of you watching on YouTube, go ahead and, zero back in with the podcast.
Yeah. Well, looking into your crystal ball here, that was some good breakdowns there. I'm going to keep those videos on my phone too, and look at them over and over and over again, because that's what I do.
That's how you become great.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm telling you, there's so many players, so many hitting coaches that don't understand video, and don't know what they're looking at on video. And honestly, I probably shouldn't give away as much as I do in these, because it's part of my income and it's how I make money at the professional level and at the amateur level. But that's how you get better. You get better by looking at different swings. Not everybody's the same. Players have different feels and different moves and different variations of those. But for the most part, if you're trying to, if you're a 14-year-old kid and you're getting ready to go to high school and you want to play high school baseball, and maybe you want to play in college and maybe you want to go beyond, you have to do certain things, and you have to, some players just naturally do it. Don't get me wrong. Some players, and again, we have elementary classes, right? Those are the youngest kids we teach. Since we have some 8, 9, 10-year-olds, and I would say one or two of them have very natural swings that we just need to keep repping them out. They're gonna be very successful based on their athleticism and what their DNA gave them mechanically. And I would say 90% of the other ones, we have to constantly make changes for them so that they can be successful. So there's always outliers that do things absolutely perfect. Are those outliers can we find them at age 10 and know that, hey, they're not going to have a problem finding barrels when they get older? Yeah, I could definitely tell you that. And are there players that can't? Yeah, there are players that can. I can look at a player and be like, you're not going to play when you're 14. Like, that ain't going to happen unless we do this, this, and this. And you know what? When you tell players that and you show players on video where they need to be and that they're not there, they're going to be motivated to make that change.
Yeah, and one point I want to make, too, I don't think you're saying mechanics, talking about mechanics and saying what players are doing. I don't think you're giving away your secrets as much because you're not actually saying how you would fix or teach those certain things. And I think that's obviously more so vital than just kind of breaking down a guy's swing.
Yeah, you're absolutely right there. There are tricks to the trade that allow players to get into that position. And that's what our certification program covers, right?
Yeah.
The how behind, hey, we want to get a player to this position, but what's the process in doing that? And we've been doing that for 20 years.
Well, looking into your crystal ball, what do you see for the future career of Vladimir Guerrero Jr.?
Yeah. How old is he now? Is he 23, 22?
22, 23.
Yeah, I would think he would win a batting title at some point in his career.
Okay.
I really see those kind of moves in athleticism. And I also see a guy that could, definitely hit 40 home runs in the big league. So I think he really has the perfect combination of now mechanically speaking and rhythm and timing of being able to do both, be a dual threat, a guy that's going to get a lot of hits, get a ton of RBIs, and hit his fair share of home runs. Okay. What I don't know and what I can't control is, what is his mental makeup? Yeah. What is his, and that comes with experience, right? Like, he's not having a super great year this year, right? Because pitchers are ahead of him and how they're pitching him and how they're working him. But the more guys spend time in the big leagues, all of a sudden they figure out what pitchers are trying to do. They start anticipating better. He's going to be surrounded by other players. Maybe he won't always be a Blue Jay, and maybe the Blue Jays sign, a guy that's, a veteran that is a similar power hitter. Maybe like a JD Martinez or something like that comes in for a couple, or a Josh Donaldson comes back. And anyway, I would say that when he gets the combination of having the right plan and approach. With what he does, he can be a very, very good hitter. And I think that will come in time. That will come in probably the next 2 or 3 years as he matures and he's, entrenched with major league pitching.
Yeah. Well, good stuff this week. And again, that video will be available on the Epstein Hitting Facebook page, the YouTube page as well, for those who want to follow along with what we were just talking about there. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast and subscribe to our own personal page for the podcast, the Epstein Hitting podcast page on YouTube for full episodes and clips from previous episodes. We're on social media at Epstein Hitting, at Jim Tara, of course. If you want to send us your questions, you can do that from social media or via our email address, jimbopodcast21@gmail.com. We do have a question we want to get to here really quickly before we wrap up the show. And this comes to us from Mark, sent to us via jimbopodcast21@gmail.com. He says, Jim, great work on the podcast. I hope you have time for this question on your next episode. I was wondering for some simple advice on pregame studying for my high school son. We were recently watching the movie Trouble with the Curve. Great movie. And there was a scene in there where the main character, Bo Gentry, was on the bus doing some visualization. I know it's Hollywood, but is that something that a player at the high school level can do on the bus on the way to a game? What methods of pregame planning on the mental side of things can a high school player do for success? Thanks, Mark. Thank you, Mark, for the question.
I'm a huge fan of visualization, so I would say go for it. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. The buses are a little bit different nowadays, which is kind of nice. Everybody puts their own headphones on and kind of zones out.
That's right.
There's not as much conversation or ruckus going on as there used to be.
Ruckus.
I like visualization. Obviously, you don't know who you're facing typically in high school. You don't have a good view of that player. So, sometimes I like to visualize before the night before, what is my body feeling? Can I put myself in that situation, in that batter's box against a pitcher who has no face, right? Like just, how do I feel in the box? What is my footwork? What is my stance? What is my body doing? Is my front shoulder down and in? I had an arm barring problem growing up, and my dad was constantly on me for that. Mm-hmm. And that would be something I would try to visualize, that arm not straightening as I went to rotate, or my barrel not dropping. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times you can train your body to do things without even swinging a bat, and that's where the WinVR comes into with pitch recognition. But good old visualization is absolutely, what am I trying to do? What have I been working on all week with my preparation? I've been working on staying through the middle, right? Because maybe I've been pulling off or to right center. So I'm going to close my eyes, visualize my swing, maybe at 50% speed, exactly what Vlad Jr. was on that curveball away. Like I'm going through that ball to right field. I feel what that's like. Yeah. Not everybody has the brain to do that. Not a lot of people can feel that.
Sure.
Really, if you're an athlete that can watch something on TV, a golf swing, a baseball swing, a bowler. I don't know why I said that. But anyway, and you
fishermen
can feel what they're feeling, right? Like I can go through there and be like, oh, I can feel that move. If I see a golfer do something and they do it in slow motion, I'm like, okay, I can feel that just watching it, and then I'll make my body do it. It doesn't mean I'm going to be able to do it when I go to hit a golf ball, but I can do it. I can trick my brain into feeling that move. Oh, that's where I want to be. Mm-hmm. So I would absolutely do that. If I'm looking to hit, I'm going to hit breaking balls today because I know I've been hotter than heck. I know I'm going to get breaking balls. I'm going to close my eyes and visualize a breaking ball coming out of that pitcher's hand. Yeah. And then when you're in the on deck, or not the on deck, when you're in the hole, right? You're not out there yet. I'll look at that pitcher. I've been studying him. I watched him warm up. I watched him, maybe face, assuming you're not the leadoff hitter, right? So I know what he's doing. Then all of a sudden I'll close my eyes. Now I have an idea of what his windup looks like, and I can match that up to the pitch that I'm looking for. Yeah. So definitely do that. That was a cool question.
Yeah, Mark, thank you for the question. Really good one right there. We've got some really good topics coming down the pike here. We're going to be talking about contact points for different pitches. That'll be part of our player development series. That'll be volume 3. I think I got to do a double check on that. We'll be talking about the rise in strikeouts, the strikeout pandemic that's been happening the last few years throughout Major League Baseball. On November 2nd, this is kind of a cool thing we're going to be doing, something a little bit different. We're going to be talking about Game 7 of the 2016 World Series. If not a watch-along, we're kind of going to do a breakdown based off the box score. That was the day, November 2nd, 2016, where the Cubs finally broke that curse and won the World Series Game 7 in Cleveland. It was a very cool moment. Sandy Alomar's birthday is October 26th. We're going to talk about his offensive career as part of a birthday celebration as well, plus be doing more mechanical breakdown series. Next week, though, we're going to be talking about swing adjustability, something that we've alluded to on the podcast in previous episodes, but we're really going to dive into it next week.
Yeah, that sounds fun. Sandy Alomar, coincidentally, was my favorite catcher growing up because he was so tall.
Oh, perfect.
And I had to copy. I used to copy how he would set up and how he would move behind the plate because we're kind of similar builds. So happy birthday to Sandy.
Yeah, that'll be on October 26th. So we got about a month until we hit that episode. And, of course, next week, again, swing adjustability. Oh, another fun episode topic we're going to be talking about, wood versus aluminum bats. Yes, sir. That'll be a lot of fun as well. That's in a couple of weeks. But swing adjustability is next week. We're out of time. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to the podcast. When they come out, the deal. Mondays, 9 a.m. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.